Hey, this is Pastor John Faison, Senior Pastor of Watch and Grow Baptist Church in Nashville, Tennessee, and you're watching AmericaPreacher.com.
Because a lot of people are having, new pastors are struggling, they feel a lot of hardships. What things that you think that really helped you in your growth, in your process?
The major piece for that I learned, or that I've seen others, transition into a new role. Just kind of learn from them, and things that I've seen, learn from older, those who have been in the faith and been in the pastorate longer. The big thing is, man, you cannot act like you've brought so much to the church, and the church was doing nothing before you got there. That's one of the quickest ways to die as a young pastor. Another quick way to die is to not celebrate your predecessor in any way. I was privileged to follow a pastor who had been there 37 years. They loved this man. This man absolutely gave everything he had to pastor this church, and they loved him. So when he was gone, when the Lord took him home, there was a grieving process. It's a grieving process there, and a new pastor, especially one who follows a deceased pastor, cannot ignore that grieving process. You gotta go against, or gotta reject this urge to take off running as soon as you come to a new church, simply because you're fresh and you got new ideas and you're ready to go, but you're dealing with wounded people, and so you have to give these people space, give these people room to navigate and to grieve. So one of the first things I did, man, was when I first got there, we went through about 2 or 3 sermon series. I'm a sermon series preacher. So each month was a new series, but we went through 2 or 3 months of just dealing with hurts, dealing with wounds, and how does God respond to that? How do we celebrate what God has done in the past, but also understand what's happening now, and how do we merge those two so that we can move forward in the future?
One question. This is off the head right here. Being a young preacher, still seasoned also. But what trends do you see now that are going on in the preaching? I guess in the preaching field, things that you think are good, but things that you think are not so good also to the faith.
Oh man, that's a loaded question. Some things that I think are detrimental. Some things that I think are detrimental first are pop culture preaching. I think that's dangerous.
Can you explain?
Yeah, sure. With the proliferation of media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Social Cam, you name it. Hootsuite allows you to get on one interface, but then blast to about 17 different social media sites. With proliferation of media and expansive reach, people no longer have to kind of work their way up in the word and in faith and being consistent in their craft. You simply have to be able to master sound bites, and those sound bites get you heard. Those sound bites get you exposed, and people base ministry off of sound bites and media exposure. And so my generation has seen that and has grabbed that as kind of a principle or a tenet of effective ministry, that you can master sound bites. Well, you've been preaching any time, pastoring any time, and sound bites last what, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. When the sound bite's over, you got to be able to lead. You got to be able to pastor people. You got to be able. First of all, you got to be able to love God. You got to have a relationship with God. And because of media has been pushed so far ahead now you got to have a website before you have a relationship with Christ. So as long as you can preach and you can master the soundbite, you got public relations down, that you're a good preacher. No, that's not the case. The measure of a preaching gift, the measure of a pastor's gift, is not what happens when the lights are on. It's what happens when the lights are off. Because what happens privately builds the platform, and builds the foundation for what can be sustained publicly. And that's one of the trends that I see my generation going down, and I'm nervous about it. One of the good things I see, though, is that different kinds of gifts in preaching and different kinds of gifts in pastoring are being celebrated and are being brought to the forefront. Previous generations you had to be able to pull it. You know, you had to be able to close. You know, and not all that's great. I love to close. I love celebrating. I got it.
Yeah.
But that's not the only gift that the African American church, particularly black preachers, that the church and particularly the African American church, that's not all we bring to the table. We bring scholarship to the table. We bring creativity. We bring imagination. We bring passion. We bring energy. We bring all kinds of stuff, a nuanced approach. We bring a view of social justice. We bring the voice of the oppressed, that kind of stuff. We bring all that to the table. But for a long period of time, that kind of thing wasn't celebrated. You had to be able to shut it down. Well, now, because this is a positive benefit of media. Because of media, we're being exposed to different voices that don't necessarily shut it down, but man, don't necessarily close and hoop and do all of that, but just powerful, anointed voices and anointed vessels that God is using for His glory in this kingdom, and it's reaching people those who shut it down can't reach.
Yeah.
Every preacher, every pastor goes through a season of frustration. I don't see it as something that, as a result of something we've done or have not done. I see it as the necessary developing stage for those who've been called to carry the gospel. If Jesus could be frustrated, if Jesus could be angry, if Jesus, the Son of the living God, could endure a time of isolation and a time of anger, a time of some would even say depression, then surely those of us who are made by His hands will have to go through the same seasons. But it's not about the seasons you go through; it's how you handle the season that you're in. I think the key for every preacher, every pastor. I'm a youngster. I'll admit that, and I say this as a young voice. But I think it's true for whoever carries the mantle of carrying the gospel. You never stop learning. Never quit. Never get to the place where you've arrived, or never get so frustrated that you cannot learn from the valley. Always, even whether on the mountaintop or on the valley, always stay in learning mode. Always be trying to get better. Always be trying to figure out what is God saying in this season. What is God saying now? I once heard Bishop Courtney Macbeth say this: "You get there by being here." I think sometimes we spend so much time on where we're going that we don't take full advantage of where we are. Wherever you are, preacher, pastor, associate, elder, bishop, wherever you are, find what you're supposed to learn in this season. That will catapult you to your next.